Okay, perfect. So I think we've got everyone on. It's up. Let's get started quickly. Okay, so welcome everyone to the November edition of Jozi and Cape Town Pug. Just as normal, we are recording the session. This is uploaded to our YouTube page. So if you do miss out on one of the events, you can go back and check it out. If you do have a problem with being recorded, please just drop off and then you can catch it on the YouTube. Just that being said, try and keep yourself on mute if you're not talking. Just try and minimize the amount of background noise that there is. Though please participate, ask questions, get involved with the conversations. None of us mind being interrupted at all. Okay, so just today we're just busy with the welcome at the moment. Then we're going to go through the news and all the Ignite announcements. There are some really exciting things coming out which we would like to talk about. Then we've got a tech tip from Dawid. He's going to be taking us through some data migration options. And then we're going to have a little bit of a community discussion like we had last time around the differences between SharePoint and Dataverse for storing data. Tonight's one's going to be around Dataverse migration options. And then we're just going to have an open floor, open general discussion for any comments or any questions you may have. You'll see I did post a poll into the meeting chat just so that we can get an understanding of how many of you joined Ignite. I do have the complete deck that was shared with the general updates, so I will be going through that tonight. So you didn't, if you weren't there, we'll be covering a lot of the stuff today. Let's check that quickly. Okay, that's perfect. Any questions before we get going? Okay, perfect. So let's jump into the news quickly. Okay, so there were 4 key themes that they were focusing on with the updates in the Power Platform. The first one being that they want to try and enable and enhance productivity when it comes to utilizing the Power Platform. Why is my poll not coming up? Let me just close that quickly. So the first thing that you spoke about that was mentioned was the search integration into the entire platform. So it makes it a lot easier for you to find records within inside the Dataverse when you're using just Microsoft Search. We're also extending this out to Bing at Work. So for those who don't know, if you integrate Bing with your organization, you can search directly from the Bing homepage, and that's going to search both public results as well as internal results. And you're going to be able to enable your Dataverse environments in Microsoft Search as well coming up. So that way, if you're searching for a specific record, a purchase order, a user, a contact, any information that's stored within Dataverse, you would be able to surface that in these search results as well. Now, like I said, this is coming, but you also have the option to choose what records are surfaced in search. And of course, the permissions that underlie the records, that are controlling the records, those are going to take precedence. So users aren't going to be able to see anything they're not supposed to be seeing. Okay, switch this out quickly. Next announcements, embedded insights from Power BI directly in apps. Now, you are going to be able to embed Power BI dashboards in your apps as system dashboards. They're going to be fully interactive, and they don't need to be leveraging the same data source as the app is using. This is just helping bring the insights directly to where the users need them, giving you that immediate information directly in the apps that you are busy working at. So this is really cool. It's going to help make it a lot easier and give you a lot more access to the information. This is currently available now at the moment. One of the other really exciting things that are coming is the collaborations in apps. So when you're busy looking at a record within Dynamics 3 or in Dynamics or in a model-driven app, so those Dataverse records, you would be able to see when other people are working on the records. Very similar experience to what you get when you co-authoring a Word document or an Excel document or PowerPoint presentation, where you can see that a person's currently working on this record and you can open up a chat directly in that view. So you don't need to go and open up Teams or anything else. The chat slider pops out directly from there. And this is going to be coming, that embedded Teams chat is coming out early next year, hopefully. The co-presence on Dataverse records is now available from this month, or it's starting to roll out from this month. Other thing is bringing that seamless integration into Microsoft Teams. So what you do when you now embed a record or you copy a URL from Power Apps into Teams, it is going to pull through that record directly. So it's going to unfurl that URL, give you the full information directly there in Teams chat to make it much easier to access the information and be able to update and interact with it directly in Teams without having to go through. Now, this is going to be available from December. It will start rolling out, so this is something that's coming quite soon. Okay. Any questions on any of this so far?
Not really, but thank you for answering on when it will be available, because I think that's the biggest thing is like we see exciting things at Ignite, but not really sure when it will have general availability here by us.
Yeah, and it's like some of the things, like the one thing that's coming that I'm going to be getting to is it's only available in certain regions. So that's also a pain at the moment with some of these things. Okay, so the next one that they were focusing on is developers as well, so pro devs, not just citizen developers. And there's a lot that they're doing in this space to try and improve that experience. One of them being that programming by example. We did speak about this a couple of months back. This is where you can use natural language to build out your expressions within the Power Platform. So you could go and ask a question about something, you want to get this result out, you can go train that result by giving it some answers, and it is going to give you that expression for you to use for that specific item. Now, this is going to help reduce that learning curve drastically for new users. And with the work that we're doing around PowerFX across the platform, it is going to make it much easier for everyone to pick up. Now, this is exactly one of those that's only available in the US region at the moment. So I was testing out today, if you go and deploy an environment in the United States, you can go and start testing this out and playing around with it and seeing how well it works. But this is really awesome to see. It's really going to make it a lot easier for anyone to pick up and start using the platform. Yeah, we can write code, probably. Love that. Yeah, so there's also a lot tighter integration with Lobe and the Power Platform. So you can train the models on your own computer using the Lobe app and then upload that data into the cloud. You're going to be easily able to classify images, graphical interfaces, and you can export that model and then consume it within Power Platform, whether you're using it in your apps or even your workflows. Another great announcement is you're also able to bring your own AI models into AI Builder. So you're not only limited to what's available in AI Builder at the moment, but you can go in and create your own custom model and then bring it into the tool. And that's going to extend the flexibility and capabilities of AI Builder within the Power Platform. So this way you can start bringing in those other ones. I was talking to Michael earlier that one that he showed us last time with the demo, he could essentially bring that in there, but it's working at the moment, so he doesn't need to. But the other great thing is you can host these models on any cloud provider. It doesn't have to be hosted in Azure. So you can use Azure ML, you can use AWS, or even on-premise, depending on what you're looking at doing. And it becomes available just like they would consume a normal model out of AI Builder. Next one was around the modern experiences in Dataverse. We have touched on this in, I think it was last month, or it might have been the month before, both of these two items. So that modern solution explorer, I think we spoke about last time, and then the command in designer, this is currently in public preview, where you are able to make use of drag and drop or even Power FX to manage the commands within applications themselves. So you can use Power FX to apply the logic, so you don't need to have complex customizations to bring in additional logic into those command ribbons from there. So this is quite cool to see. Nice to see that they're announcing it. Another great one is collaborating while building apps. So this has been a big ask for a long time. So we've got co-authoring on documents, we've got co-authoring on PowerPoint presentations, and a number of the things. We're now bringing co-authoring experience into the Power Platform as well. So while you are busy working in the Power Platform, you can comment and mention each other on certain components, so that whoever is working on this app together will be able to see what you're saying, be able to see the updates, the comments, and be able to collaborate directly in the app. Now this is coming to Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. We've had comments in Power BI for a while. It is nice to see that this is coming to the rest of the Power Platform now, at least. Now, we are also making sure we're extending the ability for pro devs to collaborate, not just citizen developers. And we've now got integration with Git directly. So you can take your YAML source code and integrate it directly into Git. And this will enable multiple developers to work on different branches of the same app at the same time, and then merge all those changes together. And this is going to help developers move a lot faster and help them get things done a lot quicker. So this is coming now in November this year. It's going to start rolling out within the next couple of weeks. Sorry, Mike, you've got a question.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that screenshot that you're presenting there is actually also an experimental feature, and it's very experimental, where two people can co-author the app at the same time. So this one now that's showing right now is literally, two people have the same screen open, and one person adds a button, the other one adds a label, and when you save, then the changes are merged, and you've essentially edited or added controls to the same screen at the same time. But this is an experimental feature, and the article that talks about this keeps iterating it's experimental. Don't rely on it too much just yet.
Yeah, I think it will still be a bit buggy, but you shouldn't get notified that this is locked and you need to start a new session. So hopefully it starts coming through. But yes, good point. It is experimental for now. Okay. We are also looking at bringing Power FX everywhere. So we've seen over the last couple of months how we've been announcing how Power FX is extending to other portions of the Power Platform. So it's obviously in Canvas-based apps, but we're bringing it into model-driven apps, Dataverse, as well as more within the Power Platform. But we're even extending it to other applications. So using the PowerFX open source, you can see a link there at the bottom. Developers can now use PowerFX within any application they are developing, adding a lot more complexity to the apps and making a lot more simpler to do. So regardless of the code that you're building in your applications, you can now start bringing in PowerFX as well to add some additional functionality to it. Okay. That is also really cool. PowerFX is going to take over the world. The next one that they're focused on is security with these apps and rolling them out. So there's been a lot of work that they're doing on conditional access to make sure that we are able to protect the data that we're using with or accessing within our Power Apps. So we are extending the policies, and you can see you can even block specific individual users from using specific apps. We also spoke about last time where you can enforce multi-factor authentication on an app if it is working with very sensitive data. So you can bring in that conditional-based access policies to make sure that a user meets certain requirements before they're allowed to access the application. And if they don't, it's going to block the app, or you can get it to elevate or ask for an MFA prompt for them to verify they are who they are. So you can also lock apps down to certain locations using those conditional-based access policies. So it gives you that insight, make it very easy for you to access it, and it will help secure those apps a lot more. One new thing that they are bringing out is the ability to quarantine non-compliant apps. So if an app all of a sudden does not meet the organization's policies, this can be put into quarantine so that users cannot access the application. Now, the admin of the app would be able to still go in and make the changes needed to meet the policy requirements. But only until then, it is going to stay in quarantine. No one will be able to use it. This has been an ask from a couple of organizations. I've had a lot of requests for this, so this is great to see. Now, also sticking along adoption and governance, we have launched the Power Platform Adoption Guide. So this is a set of tools, documents, applications, and processes to make sure that you are getting the most out of the Power Platform, to make sure that you are adopting it correctly, you've got the right policies in place to meet your organizational requirements, and this ties in very tightly with the Power Platform COE, just to make sure that you are getting the most out of your investments in the platform. So this is really cool. So if you want to check out the guidance, just check out aka.ms/Power Platform Adoption or Power Plat Adoption. Okay, and then the last bit was making sure that we can deliver applications as fast as possible. And this is a great announcement, is we have now got pay-as-you-go subscriptions for Power Apps. So what you can do is you can connect your Power Apps directly to your Azure subscription, and there's going to be three new meters that are going to be available in Azure. You're going to have the Power Apps per app meter, and what this is going to do is it's going to monitor unique users within your applications over a monthly period. So this is going to be amazing for organizations that are just starting out with things like premium connectors, and they want to, they're not too sure how many licenses they are going to need. They can start out with this model, and that's going to give them a gauge on how many users are actually using the app. So if you've got like an HR app that expands the whole company, you're not quite sure who's going to use it, this is going to allow you to be able to manage that. So it's going to check it on a case-by-case basis. Dataverse overage meter is going to allow you to pay for the database or the Dataverse storage that is consumed in your apps. I think it's 2 gigabytes of storage is included with every environment you deploy, but you can go and pay the extended data usage out of your Azure subscription directly. And then there is also a Power Platform overage meter as well. So this is speaking to like the number of flows that you have running in your environment. So, you know, you've got those limits for each user inside of your environment. If they start consuming over that limit, that would be pulled through in the overage meter, and you would be able to get visibility out of that. So this is really making it as easy as possible for anyone to start leveraging the Power Platform without having to worry about those huge upfront costs that come with licensing every single user inside your organization, especially if it is not needed. Yes, Tabo.
Just 2 questions, Jonathan, or no question. Sure. The one request is on this pay-as-you-go. I was wondering if maybe you guys could maybe in one of the sessions coming up in the next few months, if you could like dive a bit deeper into how this meter works exactly, because I have been reading up about it, and yeah, there is some requests that, you know, to use obviously the cheapest way of payment. So I just want to understand how exactly this meter works. And another question I'll find out, you said that apps can be quarantined. Just from a understanding point of view, like why would you quarantine? Why would someone want to quarantine an app? Assuming that you're building it within your organization, shouldn't you already know that you can't do A, B, and C? Or does someone actually go to the app and manually quarantine it? Or is there a policy that automatically quarantines an app if it's, you know, past a certain...
Yeah, so there is going to be a policy that will be able to push it if it doesn't meet it. Remember, app makers would be able to go and make changes to the app that can all of a sudden make it fall out of policy. And in that situation, it can automatically be quarantined, where the owner then needs to go and fix that issue that's causing it to not meet its requirements. There's a lot available in the COE that can help you with this process. But yeah, it is possible for an app to fall out of the policy guidelines, and the quarantine is there to help protect that. So I hope that answers the question. But then also with regards to diving a bit deeper into this, we can look at maybe for the next session, just doing a deep dive, get it set up in one of our subscriptions and just show you what that whole experience looks like. Okay.
Please, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
And I did just pop a link in the IM window, Tabo, that points to the documentation on how to configure pay-as-you-go. It goes quite into a lot of detail, actually. So if you haven't seen that docs, just check out that link there.
All right, cool.
Thank you. Mike, correct in assuming that this is coming out of your Azure bowl, correct? Hey?
Yeah, so essentially what happens is you go into the admin center and you associate your environment to an Azure subscription. So that's kind of like step one of the configuration. And then you go and associate an app into that. So when you go to an app, you don't, you know, the way you license the app is you go to a specific app and you say, hey, this app needs to use this Azure subscription essentially now. And then, yeah, that's how it works. So it kind of sums up the total number of unique users over a month and then deducts that times the price off that Azure subscription.
Yeah.
So if nobody uses the app in a month, you don't pay. If
100%.
Yeah, if 1,000 people use the app in a month, then it's 1,000 times X. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Mike, where did you save the link? Sorry.
It's in the IM window, so the little chat window.
Okay,
it
cool.
says just docs.microsoft.com, but if you click it, it goes to the full setup and configuration. And I can set up and configure this.
Setup, Mark.
Eh?
I'm not seeing it in the chat.
Yeah, I was like,
just click the little send. I think the envelope.
Oh, I've sent it. The first one I said is Dawid, I saw you, your hair's grown. And then I sent that. So I don't know. Maybe my chat window's not working.
I haven't seen that one either.
no, there's nothing here.
I would have probably commented on that.
I'll jump out and jump back into the meeting again. I am having my power came back on. You know, how dare it?
Oh, nice.
That's broken everything. Yeah. Okay. I'll resend it. I'll jump out and jump back into the meeting. Maybe it'll work.
Okay, perfect.
Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
On again, yeah. Okay, so I think it's the last one. Yes, now we have the ability to deliver standalone Power Apps. So you're now going to be able to take your Power App, bundle it, and deploy it directly to end users' devices. Now, this can be published to the private or public app stores. So either the Microsoft App Store, Apple, or Google App Store, or you can deliver these apps through Mobile Device Manager. One thing to note, this doesn't run in a Power Apps container as is the case nowadays. So it's going to be a full professional app running on the mobile devices directly. This is probably one of the biggest asks that we've had about Power Apps is, can we make standalone apps for devices. So this has finally been announced. I don't have a date on this one, unfortunately, yet, but I think it's something that's going to be rolling out soon. This is really exciting to see. Yeah, Dawid, absolutely agree. This is really huge. So this is going to make such a difference. I think it's going to get Power Apps absolutely everywhere out there, because this was a huge limitation. Now, you don't need any Power Apps installed on the phone. You can just go to the App Store, or it can be pushed down through things like Intune or any other mobile device management service, or even the App Stores. Sorry, Dawid, did you have a comment?
No, I just I wonder what the licensing is going to look like for that.
Yeah. Can I just create some clarity? Hopefully, this doesn't mean that the app doesn't require you to sign in. So it doesn't change.
Yeah,
We
no,
now
no.
have a, you know, it's still, Power Apps will still, you'll still have to sign in. So the only thing that, in quotes, the only thing that's changing is now the way you can get it onto people's devices is through this mechanism. So, you know, you could put it on the Google Play Store. Someone will install it. It'll be a zero value, cost to them to install. But then as they open it, they're going to have to sign in like they do today in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the security is not going to change. All of that's going to be the same.
Yeah. So from a licensing perspective, I don't think there's going to be any license change as part of this. It's just a different way to deliver and get that app onto a device.
Yeah, good point. Okay, perfect. And I think that's all the announcements for Power Apps that we got through at Ignite. I just want to pause for a second and see if there's anyone else that managed to come across anything else that was announced that they think was really important for us to know, or just wants to share. Yes, Tian.
The Dataverse, SharePoint list going offline availability.
Oh, really? I actually missed that. SharePoint list offline availability now.
Yeah, and that opens a whole new discussion on should you use Dataverse or SharePoint lists.
Oh, yeah, that's just making the conversation worse now.
Just use Dataverse.
Doing this to us. Yeah. It's quite a cool feature, but is it the right thing? I don't know. We had that conversation last time about Dataverse or SharePoint. Now it's just making it even harder.
Maybe ESCOM is ahead of its time, going offline all the time.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Anything from anyone else? Okay, perfect. Okay, so with that, thanks everyone. Dawid, I'm going to hand it over to you to take us through the tech tip and then into the community discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
No problem.
Let's get some screen sharing going. Okay, cool. So what I want to show you guys is typically if you have an environment, a Dataverse environment, this doesn't work on SharePoint, but if you've got a Dataverse environment where you've got some data in it, and typically this will work well with larger type of data sets, or stuff that's not easy just to recapture or to re-import, so especially things with lots of relationships and all of that. If for some reason you needed to take the whole data set and just move it to another environment or another tenant, or a subset of those tables, it can be quite an interesting process to export and then import these into the destination, because there are things that you need to worry about, like keys and primary keys and foreign keys and relationships and all of these sort of things. And if you do this with the Excel or the CSV wizard, you need to make sure that the order in which you do the imports are spot on. Otherwise, you continually have to go back and see where it failed and then redo it and all of these sort of things. So what I'm going to show you is a tool that initially I didn't find it very easy to come about, and it's called the Dataverse configuration migration tool. Now, I don't know who of you have worked with this, but if you go and search for Dataverse configuration migration tool, you'll see that there's an article on Microsoft's docs at Microsoft, where you can go and read up about this. This is nothing new. It's been around since Dynamics days. But I did find that some of the documentation aren't exactly clear on how to use this or where to get access to it and whether you actually should even be using it. So if you go into this information and read through it, you'll see at the bottom there is a link over here, which will give you a little bit more detail about it. So you actually need to go and do some digging to find it. And there's some light bedtime reading that'll show you exactly how this thing works. So first you actually get the schema of the data, then you export the data itself, and then you import the data giving the schema. So then it knows what to do with the data at the time of importing it. So if you want to, you can go and read through this. It's actually very good. What I'm going to show you quickly is how to get your hands on it. All right, so you'll see at the bottom that there's download tools from NuGet, and this will allow you to actually go and download this file. You'll see that it talks about the NuGet package. Now, don't worry about it too much. NuGet, once you download it, it's actually just a zip file. So you can actually just go and click on that. And there's a whole lot of readmes and stuff that you can go and read if you're so inclined, or you can go and click on download package. And once this is downloaded, it's only 6 megs, so it should run pretty fast. Let's go and export it or save it there. And if we now extract this, you'll see that this has got an NUPKG file extension, which I'm not sure if many people are familiar with, but you can go and change that to a zip file. And then you can simply go and extract this. So I can just say extract to there. I can delete the zip file. And in the actual directory that it created, you'll see that there's a lot of other packaging tools. So typically this could also be used in your ALM strategy when you automate the process of packaging and deploying the data to, or the actual solutions to environments. And if you go into tools, scroll down, you'll see that there's the data migration utility. All right, so now once you launch this, this is where the good stuff starts. So I'm going to close those screens. And you'll see that over here, it's launched the configuration data, or common data service configuration migration. So they haven't yet renamed this. This used to be Dynamics, then common data service, and now it really should be Dataverse. Right, so what I'm going to show you quickly is I've created a very simple expense claim system. It's actually just 2 tables, and at the top we've got an expense header, so that's supposed to have the details for the actual expense that you're submitting. And then we've got expense items that uses, that's like a child table of the expenses table. We go and list all the individual items. So at the moment, I'm in the Playpen environment, and if I open up expenses, you'll see that under data, I currently have 2 records, lunch with Mike and lunch with Mornay. And then if I go into the expense items, there will be 4 records. 2 of these would relate to lunch with Michael, and 2 of these with lunch with Mornay. And that's where the relationship comes in. And if you do import this data, you need to be very careful that you don't mess up the relationship. All right, so what I'm going to do now is show you in the destination tenant. This is a Power Platform demo environment, and this could be in a completely separate tenant. It could be in a different data center. It doesn't need to be on the same tenant or the same environment. The only thing to keep in mind is it's good if your schema is already in that destination tenant. So think of it as always use solutions, and by now you really should be using solutions. If you're not, take a step backwards, go and read up in solutions and make sure that you are using it. So in this destination environment, I've already imported the solution that contains the two tables. So once I import the data, the tool would know exactly what to do with it and where to put it and where to place it. Right, so if I open up the expense and the expense items, you'll see that there's no data in here currently, and this is where we're going to do the imports. So at the top, we can go and say data and go and get the data and all of these sort of things, but that means that, again, the order in which you import these things need to be very, very precise, and there's a lot of things to consider around the keys and these sort of things. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up this tool that we launched earlier. And the first thing you do is you go and create the schema. So you go and tell the tool what is the schema going to look like that you're going to be working with. So over here, you can specify where it's an on-premises or an Office 365 environment. You can make it easy and just say display all the available organizations or environments that you have access to. And let's go and see if this is currently logged in. It's probably not. So I'm just going to force it to do a login. Okay, so I'm just going to log in. Of course, we now need MFA. Okay, so there we go. Why is that not working? I was just thinking about it, is working. Right, so now we're going to point it to the source environment, and that's going to be the Playpen environment. We're going to go and click on login. And now it does all of the magic for you. You can go and select the solution that you want to work with. And again, I really recommend that you do work with solutions. And in here, it shows you all of the entities that are part of, or the tables that are part of the solution. And I can just go and say, simply add all of them. You can go and modify some of them if you wanted to. So you can go and remove some of the fields and manipulate them if you wanted to do that for whatever reason. But from here, I can just go and say save and export. Now it's going to ask me, where do I want to save the schema? So I'm just going to save it. It's an XML file. So I'm just going to save it into that directory, overwrite the previous one. And now it says the schema is saved, which you now also like to export the data. And of course we do. So there it says there's a schema it's going to use to actually extract the data. Where do you want to save the data file? And we're just going to put it into the same directory, into the data.zip file, and we're going to go and export all of it. So it's now just connecting to all of those tables, sucking the information out and putting it in a zip file in a way that's easy for it to read and understand at the time of importing it again. So if I now go, and you can see there's all greens, so I think we are cooking. So from here, we can now go and say import the data. And now it's going to ask me, where do I want to import this to? So I'm just going to say sign in with the current user because I've already signed in a few minutes ago. I can now go and say I want to put this in the Power Platform demo tenant. So if we now log into that, it's simply going to ask me, all right, all of this is cool. Where is your zip file you want to import? And I'm going to connect to the zip file, and it says it's now ready to import those two tables or entities. And if I go and import the data, it's actually doing quite a lot of very cool things. The first thing that it's doing is it's determining based on the relationships what it needs to import and first, and then so to make sure that the parent data is available at the time of importing the child. Otherwise, there's no way of importing the child if the parent lookups don't exist. And if it then finds that, if for whatever reason that the child is being imported first, it picks that up and it realizes that the parent isn't there yet, and it automatically queues a retry for that child, for those child records. And then when the parents have been imported, it'll actually just go and run through those ones that it missed. And it's It's actually phenomenal. We've been having great fun with this tool. So you'll see there's all greens. And if I now go back into my destination tenant or environment, so you'll see that there is expense claims. And if I go to data, there's the data that we've just imported. And all of the keys, all of the relationships are 100% intact. So if I go into expense items, and I go and have a look at the beer option, edit the record, you'll see that it kept the relationship with the parent, which is lunch with Mike. All right, so this tool is really phenomenal. We've been having some great fun with it. It's actually designed for migrating configuration data. So think of things that you need to go and set up, things like business units or something that you typically go and set up in a specific environment, but it's data. It's not part of the actual design or the schema of the solution. So when you import that into destination environments, you actually need to go and reset up those things like business units and these sort of things. And with this tool, you can take all of that, suck it out, and just put it in your destination environment. So, and without that, that's quite an issue. But you can also use this with user data. We've got no reason why you can't do that with normal user data as well. Certainly, we've been having some challenges with data flows and keeping track of the actual relationships and these sort of things. It's also a lot faster than data flows. So that's where we thought we'll give you a quick demo on how this works. Are there any questions or any comments on this tool, or anybody who's used this in the past that want to give us some feedback or input onto this? Cool. So with that, we're going to go into the community discussion, and that's really talking about migrating of data between environments. And what I've shown you now is one of the options, but many others exist as well. And similar to the discussion we had last month around what data sources you should be using, we thought that we'd also like to throw this out on the table and say, what's everybody's feedback and suggestions with regards to migrating data in the Power Platform. So does anybody have anything that they want to add or want to mention on that front? Michael, Jonathan? Manuel, if you want to jump in and get the conversation going, you're more than welcome to.
I don't know if there's a lot of golf fans on this group.
Right, Michael, Jonathan, anything you guys want to add to that?
I'm having a nightmare with my internet since the power came on. It was better when my power was off.
You see, your devices are evolving.
They're revolting.
Evolving. Yeah.
Oh, they're evolving. Okay, well, maybe they are. It's probably, yeah, that's what they've been fed and that's what they want. They don't want power. I'm typing away in the IM window, but nothing's going through. Look, the only thing I could say is that I've used many different tools depending on the scenario. So there's data flows, which Dawid, I don't know if you commented on now or not because you broke up, but there's data flows is one way you could move data from on-premises or some other cloud or a SQL table or from environment to environment. There's Azure Data Factory, which similarly I could use it for those scenarios and has a connector for the Dataverse so you can push data in. And then there's third parties like Scribe and the like as well that can also do this stuff. And I would say with all of those three that I mentioned now, they have, in quotes, the added benefit that you can do some type of ETL as part of that migration. So you want to combine the first name field and the last name field and make it a full name field as part of that ingestion. So those work well, where your input schema is not the same as your output schema, I guess. They also have configuration options like, well, how many do you want to batch upload at a time? How many threads do you want to run? So they've got all these kind of like sophistication built in, but also much more complicated to use than what you've just shown. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's used any of those things and found them to be good, bad, ugly, slow. Yeah.
One thing that I really like about data flows is the new virtual tables. I don't know if you've seen those, where essentially you don't import the data into Dataverse. It sort of creates like a middleware layer between, let's say, SQL and your Dataverse apps. So when you talk to the virtual table, it shows you the actual data in SQL after it's taken it through its transform steps. So it's actually like a live integration with SQL from Dataverse, or SQL, or any other app that Power Query can talk to, or any other system or data endpoint that Power Query can talk to. So that's also in preview at the moment, but I think that's going to be awesome from the data flows table. But that's like you said, that's very good for integration, and we need to do recurring take on or synchronization of data. With this specific tool, there's no synchronization or batching or anything like that. This is a once-off. I need to get my data from one database into another one. So Mike, there your chat just came through.
Mike's being incredibly rude and just carrying on with complete different discussions here on the chat.
I'll tell you, I'm not in control. It's doing its own thing right now. It's weird. It's like voice seems to be working, but the I am not.
It's quite entertaining. I'm not going to lie.
I'm just giving you time to digest before I send the text.
And then there's also a lot of very cool tools on XRM Toolbox. That's also definitely a must. Maybe we should do a session on XRM Toolbox at some stage. But it's like everything that Dataverse can't do. Oh, there we go. There's number 5. Okay. So yes, XRM Toolbox. So everything that Dataverse can't do, that from an administration perspective, there are so many add-ins and tools that you can download as part of that makes your interaction with Dataverse just so much easier that I will definitely recommend that as well. Actually, I think I will do a quick session on that in a future meetup.
I assume copy and paste from grid view is not an option, right?
In SharePoint it is, yes.
And I guess I'd also just put in, well, once again, you probably haven't seen it, number 6, the data import wizard, which is in the settings of a model-driven app. So that's been around forever as part of Dynamics 365. And it creates like an import job behind the scenes and then brings data in. But that's typically if I'm importing like a CSV file or an Excel file of data.
And then you need to set up the mappings and all of those sort of things.
Yeah.
So you can also do it directly from the table in Dataverse. You can go and do a get data, and then that experience feels like a little bit easier than using the old import wizard. And it does a lot of the mapping and stuff, feels like it's more accurate than the old ones. With the old ones, I found that you need to do quite a bit of manipulation or mapping, work on the mappings with the front end, and doing it from the table directly, and you go to get data is quite accurate actually.
Cool.
Doesn't do any favors with relationships though. You still need to manually keep track of all of those things very carefully.
Cool. Yeah, and that tool that you showed, Dawid, also can be added into the packager. So, like if you go to app source and you get a model-driven app off of app source and it comes with data, it's using what you showed under the hood. So it's using the package wizard essentially under the hood to package the app and bring it in as a solution, but also the actual data has been exported the way that you did it and brought into the tool. So, you can import a solution and the data in one step using that mechanism.
Love it. Any other comments on
and then I guess just another point to be aware of. Sorry, just another thing to be aware of. I'm not saying I have an answer for it, but just to be aware of, depending on the different tool that imports data into the Dataverse, it will use API requests. And so the Dataverse has a web API, and depending on how you talk to that web API, you could accidentally go over like a throttle limit. So there's throttle limits that protect the service from like abuse. And so when you're importing mass amounts of data, if for every row you call the API once and you have to import 1 million rows, then you're calling the API 1 million times. Versus if you do them in batches of, let's say, 1,000 records per time, and I'm not going to do the maths, but 1,000 records per time, 1 million, that's only
1,000 times.
Yeah, 1,000, whatever it is. See, I shouldn't have tried. And so these are also things you just got to be careful of when you're importing mass amounts of data versus like what you were showing, which is small amounts of data as part of a, moving data from one environment to another.
Yeah, I agree. And I think data flows, that's part of why data flows is quite slow at runtime, because it goes through the API. And I've seen throttle limits kick in while doing data flow imports as well. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. And also, if you look at something like Azure Data Factory, there's some nice articles on the web where people have, tried different configurations. So a batch of 100 a time versus 10 a time versus 1,000 at a time, and how many threads to run, and then it gives you the resulting performance out of it. And it's quite interesting just to see what different people's performance characteristics look like when they mass migrating or updating data in the Dataverse. So yeah, so I guess if you're doing, that type of thing and you are using a tool like Azure Data Factory, you want to check out those articles and see what the impact is.
I wonder how far we are away from allowing SQL Studio from writing data into Dataverse. Because you can use it to read the data, which is quite useful.
Yeah.
But you can't write anything back to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I couldn't comment on that.
By the way, I realized that I think we lost Jonathan. So that's the story behind his silence.
He's probably having the same issues I'm having.
So that's why Jonathan was not jumping in, because he'd usually jump into these conversations very eagerly, but
you had a heartbeat.
Oh no, I'm muting my mic now.
Has anybody else got experience using any of these technologies?
Okay. So I think it's one of those things that at some stage, especially if you start using more and more with Dataverse, work more and more with Dataverse, which everyone will at some stage. Microsoft has designed all of this in such a clever way that you can only SharePoint for so long, and then you're going to run out of SharePoint. And the more and more you work with Dataverse, the more these things are going to become issues or considerations that you need to think about. So I think it might be also a good idea to deep dive into this a little bit further, going in another session to actually show the various imports, Excel and CSV and Dataverse and data flows, and just to give everybody a quick crash course on what the various options are.
That would be nice, Dawid. That would be very nice.
Cool. So any other questions or suggestions before we round up the meetup? I also see that Monet isn't on the call, so that's for half of the conversation gone.
Yeah, he did say to me, and I wish I could remember, this is age, that he might be late. So it's possibly that. He'll join at about 5:30, so if you just stay on.
if you want to stick around, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And if nobody has any other questions, then I think let's call it an evening and give you some time back in the day. And thanks for attending. And we're looking forward to the December one. And like usual, we'll arrange something cool for the December one and maybe have some prizes and these sort of things. So Michael told me the other day that he's got some great ideas around all of that. So I'm really excited to hear what he has in mind, and I'm sure you'll be too.
So will I. Thanks, Dawid. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Oh, yes, Kahoots. We need to do another Kahoots quiz. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Ask some random questions around.
Manuel, will you make sure Jandre is on the call again? Because he usually kicks Kahoots Heine.
Awesome.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good
I
evening.
enjoyed that. Thank you
Cheers.
to Michael and Dawid and to Jonathan, who fell off the call. But thank you for presenting, everyone.
Thanks, Van.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.